Welcome to Comrades, a broadcast presented by StrikeMap UK. This is our second ever episode. My name is Henry Fowler and I'm a co-founder of StrikeMap UK alongside my good friend and comrade Robert Paul. Starting in late 2020, StrikeMap is a digital-powered, worker-powered map which encourages workers, stewards and reps to upload their action, help us share solidarity with those taking action and encourage others in their struggles. As I've said, this is our second show, so please follow us, join us, subscribe to our new YouTube channel and get involved in the conversation at StrikeMap UK. We have some really interesting guests on the show tonight, and I'm really pleased to be joined by all of them, talking about the amazing organising work the strike action people are taking, and also the fantastic wins and victories that workers are having. In the first part of the show, we're going to be focusing on the organising work that's happening out there in the movement. And I want to welcome my first two guests who discuss the fantastic work of the Nanny Solidarity Network. The Nanny Solidarity Network is a grassroots worker and migrant-led mutual aid organisation. They provide support, resources, emergency aid, community, and a space for collective action to nannies and au pairs based in the UK. The NSN works closely with like-minded organisations to provide free and fair immigration advice to members, as well as access to employment support through the IWGB Union. A big Comrades welcome to both Veronica and Miranda. Welcome to you both. I hope you're well. First of all, can you let us know about your roles in the National Solidarity Network? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having us. Should I start, Miranda?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm Veronica. So I'm a coordinator with the Nanny Solidarity Network, but I'm also a co-founder. And our structure is pretty non-hierarchical. So yeah, we all kind of work together. And I'm also a nanny in South London, and I've been a nanny for 9 years now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Veronica. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for coming tonight. Miranda.
I'm Miranda. I'm also a nanny in South London, although only for about a year and a half. And with the Nanny Solidarity Network, I'm working on trade union development.
Fantastic. It's fantastic to have you both. You're doing absolutely vital work and really interesting work at a fantastic time. So I've got a few questions and really interesting discussion and to hear from you about some of the things you're involved in. So can you explain to us, maybe some of our viewers who don't know, what is the Nanny Solidarity Network?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like you gave us a really good introduction anyway. So I think you kind of said it. We're a grassroots mutual aid organisation. We're worker and migrant led. And we're providing support, financial aid, resources and space for collective action. So we are a pretty new organisation. We started in May of last year. And we were started by myself and another nanny, Anne-Marie Sanguini. I guess the idea was that the childcare sector was already on its knees. It was really underfunded. The nanny sector in particular is really underregulated. And then with the lockdown, we were seeing nannies who were being made homeless as well as jobless. It was really sort of dire straits. So we started off as a hardship fund, and we got together and started raising money. We started raising money in sort of May. We raised £9,000 in the first 2 months, and we were able to get hardship payments out to 45 nannies. And from there, we realized that there was just real demand to see some change in the sector and also just to see some more support. So we made a WhatsApp group, we kept organizing, and we were able to build a really strong team of organizers. And now we offer free English classes, we offer welfare support, we do emergency housing for nannies. And also one of the most exciting things we're doing is we're working with IWGB to hopefully build a trade union branch for nannies. So something that the IWGB do is they have a holding branch where workers who don't have an existing union branch in the UK can sort of join and if you get enough members in the holding branch, you can form your own branch. So they've recently formalized the yoga teachers branch first in the UK. And so it's a really exciting way of sort of like being able to put those building blocks together slowly. And we've been able to build up our membership since August last year, and start thinking through maybe some ideas for campaigns as well. So yeah,
sounds fantastic. Yeah, and I saw this week the yoga teacher announcement. Maybe have some people on a future show to talk about that. So another interesting area. So I guess probably to you, Miranda, then about, so why organise a kind of union branch now? How did that come about in terms of the onus to go ahead and do that right now?
Well, at the moment, there's no active union for nannies and au pairs, which just in and of itself seems like a good reason to organise the branch now. Childcare work, especially childcare work done in the home, often isn't conceptualised as work. And I think kind of historically this has contributed to the fact that nannies and au pairs have often kind of fallen through the cracks in trade union movements. And it's particularly been the case with au pairs, as their job is often framed as kind of this form of cultural exchange. So with their employers thought of as host families rather than employers. And what this results in is really exploitative situations often, where au pairs are being paid far below minimum wage for their work. But au pairs and nannies are workers, and having access to a trade union where we can come together to take collective action to improve our working conditions is just really important. I think at the moment as well, there are not many places for nannies and au pairs to get the advice they need, or even to share the advice that they have been given, or that they've, the knowledge that they've developed about work issues. So there are online groups, but some of the online platforms are also run by agencies, for example. So nannies who are reaching out for advice don't always get advice from those who are putting their interests first. And obviously, as Veronica said, the pandemic has played a big role in why this branch has come about now, and kind of in pushing childcare workers to breaking point. And particularly recently, we've seen the NEU get a government U-turn on schools. We've seen nursery workers take action through United Voices of the World with their new childcare branch and with Unison. But there hasn't really been the same thing for people who provide childcare in the home. And also with the school and nursery closures, it means that a lot of nannies and au pairs are actually doing more hours than ever to compensate for the closures in unsafe conditions. So I think those are some of the reasons why now.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really interesting. And as you said, in our last show, we talked to educators about how they've been organising during this pandemic and how that's different, and how it's been important, exciting, and workers are building real collective power and confidence together in facing up not just the government, but also that linkage with society. It's really interesting to hear. So I guess to both of you, but I don't know if you want to start, Veronica, but about what the impact of COVID has been on your ability to organise. I think it's a real important part of this moment in history, and we should try and document it as best we can. So what is the impact of COVID, I guess, on organising nannies and au pairs at this time? Can we unmute, please?
Oh, thank you. So I think what has actually been quite fortunate in a way for us is that we started in the pandemic, so our processes have had to be we've had to think through COVID and how we organise around COVID, whereas I know that a lot of other organisations have had to kind of completely shift things. That was kind of in our processes from day one. But it has been really difficult because nannies are in isolated settings, similar to careers, often similar to yoga teachers as well. So it is harder to reach workers, and the points of contact that workers may have with each other throughout the day, so like at playgrounds, at stay and plays at the school gates, you know, they're not getting that. Often parents are, at the moment, are asking nannies to stay home. So it has been really difficult to reach people sort of on the ground. A lot of our organising has had to be done through Facebook groups, through WhatsApp groups, sort of word of mouth. We've had a lot of specifically like our welfare cases. People know of us now and will recommend nannies to join our WhatsApp if they need help. What I think has also been quite useful is that so for instance, there's the overseas domestic worker with visa, with migrant domestic workers. Those are often domestic workers who are brought into the UK on a visa that's tied to their employers, and we see some of the worst abuses in the sector with those workers. Often they're not allowed to leave the house, and they're established.
Oh, we might have lost Veronica there. Miranda, I don't know if there's anything you want to add as Veronica maybe comes back around, pick up where Veronica left, or start somewhere else. Completely up to you, Miranda, but I'm interested about that COVID and the ability to organise. Oh,
I think she's back, yeah.
Fantastic. Sorry, Veronica, we lost you for a moment. Do carry on. You're in full swing.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying what I think has been useful is that there is sort of a precedent for organising isolated workers in the sector, or workers that are hard to reach, because with groups like Voice of Domestic Workers and Calayan, they're already supporting people, especially sort of au pairs, who can sometimes, in the worst abuse cases, be trapped in the home and unable to leave, and they're still being reached by established orgs. So we've almost sort of come in as a new organisation and had quite a lot of support from other groups, sort of thinking through with us like how we can reach people. So it's like that precedent in the sector has been helpful to sort of learn from other groups. I think the other concern with working exclusively online is Zooms are really difficult. They assume that people have access to a stable internet connection. They assume that people have a private space to talk, and especially au pairs.
Yep, seeing why that stability of internet connection is so vital. As we went into that 29 general election, what a really good demand that was to have broadband available to everyone. We've learned that now, haven't we? A pandemic's exposed that. Veronica, you're back. I was just saying, I was rambling on about how we needed to have good broadband in every home and how that was a big part of that Labour manifesto. And now it looks, people laughed at it, but now it looks essential, doesn't it? Carry on where you were, Veronica. Thank you.
This is really clearly the issue, is we're having a lot of this in our meetings. So yeah, obviously there's issues with internet connection. There's also issues with finding a private space to talk if people live in with their employers, and also just language barriers. So the majority of our members speak Brazilian Portuguese, and that's great because we have a lot of organisers who speak Brazilian Portuguese. But if someone comes in and they speak Spanish or they speak Tagalog, we don't have the support for them yet, and so it can be difficult to reach out sort of and get a really clear representation of the sector. You know, that being said, we have been able to organise. So we had 50 people get our hardship grant in the end. We've had another 50 in the WhatsApp on top of that, and we've built a team of organisers. So we are confident that, like, if we just keep thinking laterally about it, we can work through it. It might just be a bit of a slower process.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it the other way around, that you're a COVID-ready organisation that will then will have to adapt to post-COVID world, which sounds kind of juxtaposition of what I was expecting, but I hadn't thought it through in such detail. But that's really, really fascinating. So thank you very much, Veronica. That's fantastic. Is there anything you want to add to that, Miranda, around the impact on your ability to organise, picking up on some of that kind of Facebook groups, WhatsApp, and obviously the dreaded Zoom that we're on now?
Yeah, I think it will be really good to be able to meet people face to face again when it's safe, because also to kind of build the social connection and build trust between a group of people. I think that will be really helpful. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that will be key. I mean, it brings me on to my next question. You talked about how you're, developing that, organising the work that you're doing during COVID, which is great. What kind of types of demands and issues do you organise around in Nanny Solidarity Network, or do you plan to, I guess, going into the future? I don't know which one of you wants to take that first, but.
So far, Veronica and I have signed on behalf of Nanny Solidarity Network a letter organised by a coalition called Post Pandemic Childcare. And that letter had quite a few demands, but the ones in it relating to nannies and au pairs include things like for furlough to be accessible to everyone, not just people who are on PAYE, because obviously a lot of nannies and au pairs aren't on PAYE. Ending no recourse to public funds, which is really important, so that migrant nannies and au pairs can access the support that they need to not go into work. And then Veronica's already mentioned it, but improving the rights of those on the migrant domestic worker visa. So to enable people to renew their visas and also to change employers. So those are some of the kind of demands in that letter. There are some other issues that we've kind of started thinking through with the network. So something like an accessible childcare visa with a route to indefinite leave to remain is something that's come up. And then, of course, kind of demands relating to low pay, particularly on online platforms. But generally, I think we really want to generate our demands democratically via a union branch and via the network members, particularly because we're not necessarily representative voices of the sector. So it's really important for demands to come from a group of workers, and particularly workers marginalised due to race or immigration status. So really, this is why we're unionising. It's to be able to create these demands collectively. And yeah, we just really urge any nannies and au pairs to join us so we can work on these things together.
Fantastic, thank you. I mean, I want to come on to now, if it's possible, with you, Veronica, to talk about what does the future look like for Nanny Solidarity Network, maybe in the short term, but also maybe into that longer term, just to give people an insight. It's, like I said, a fascinating area and really important, and will continue to be so. So what does that look like?
The future of the network, I mean, I suppose it will really be led by what the members want and need, and also like what the union members want and need, because obviously they're two separate entities, but we hope that they can sort of support one another. We almost sort of see it as a trade union with scaffolding around it, because we can provide sort of more holistic support in terms of housing and education on top of traditional trade union support. So I think it would be really great for us to develop an idea of what that looks like, what it looks like to have an organisation and a trade union supporting one another, to make sure that workers are getting really holistic support and getting that community as well, I think. But it will really be led by the members, because, for instance, when Anne-Marie and I started, I was able to access furlough. So I think a lot of the organising originally we were thinking through with campaigns. When we started to build our membership, it wasn't actually what people wanted, and it wasn't what everyone felt they needed. So I think that's something that we're going to just have to keep thinking through together. Yeah, but hopefully, in the future we can have enough nannies in the holding branch to formalise, and then we can start building some campaign strategies. We were speaking with a group in the US called Masahari today, actually, and they were telling us about the things that they've won over the past few years. They've won a pathway to citizenship for domestic workers. They've won time and a half overtime. They've won contracts for anyone over more than 16 hours, like things that we thought were impossible 10 years ago, and things that feel impossible here. And listening to them and thinking, well, that's something we could maybe do down the line. I think it feels like there's a lot of potential.
So that sounds fantastic, and it's great to hear about what's happening in different countries. It can always act as an inspiration or reinforce what we're doing here, I think. So that's really interesting to hear, and I obviously like to invite you back in the future to maybe talk through how that's developed. That sounds fantastic. So I guess the kind of last question really from me is, how can the movement support your organising work and your members?
So the first thing is to encourage any nannies or au pairs to join the IWGB holding branch. And then I think more generally, it's really important to understand the complexities of the sector, and also for childcare work, particularly in the home, not to be undervalued, and the same as with feminised work more generally. Yeah, it would be really, really important to see the trade union movement supporting that. I think some of the complexities that we're working with include the kind of dynamics in relation to our employers. And while obviously we really want to put pressure on our employers to give better employment conditions, the kind of fundamental reality is that parents and carers probably shouldn't be paying for childcare. Childcare should be provided to parents and carers free by the government. So we do kind of realise that, you know, while we're pushing our employers for better conditions, we probably do also have to work with them to an extent in coalition to achieve the changes that we need to see from the government in relation to childcare more generally. So I think, you know, some of the other things Veronica's mentioned about thinking through how to organise isolated work with different employers. And we see lots of overlap and solidarity with sex workers, for example, and we're really inspired by sex worker unionisation campaigns and mutual aid funds like Swarm. And I think finally a really important thing is supporting migrants in the trade union movement. And obviously this does exist, but it would be great to see the movement campaigning for an end to no resource to public funds, campaigning for the end of the hostile environment, because that would be really good for our workers.
Fantastic, thank you. And that sounds excellent. The need for both political and industrial strategies, building that political pressure for a new world, and also working where you are with employers to get the best for your members at the same time. I think that sounds an excellent approach, and it's been fantastic having you both. We've really enjoyed listening to you and hearing about you. It's a really interesting piece of work and really important at this time. So I want to thank you both. Massive solidarity from Strike Map UK to all nannies and au pairs organising. And you've heard there from the Nanny Solidarity Network. So thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much, Miranda. It's fantastic. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're moving on now to the next part in our show, which is called Strike of the Week. So last week we spoke to the UVW workers at Sage Nursing Home, and this week we've got another set of strikers out at the moment. Recently, GMB members have been on strike at British Gas over the shameful plans to fire and rehire workers. From the likes of Keir Starmer to Boris Johnson and others in between, fire and rehire has been condemned as action that employers can take, but it remains legal in this country. This strike action, I think we would all agree, is hugely important to the Labour movement. And I am delighted to give a big Comrades welcome to Vanessa and Paul. Thanks for joining us both. It's fantastic to have you. Thank you very much. Let me start by sending you and all GMB strikers solidarity from Strike Map UK. So thank you very much for coming along. I've got a few questions for you. I hope that's okay, and feel free to jump in. But one of you to start with, for those that don't know, I don't think there'll be many, but there may be a few. What is your strike about? Who is on strike? Either of you, Paul or Vanessa. If we can unmute, colleagues. Fantastic.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Welcome, Paul.
Yeah, so the strike is about fire and rehire. They issued us with a section S188 to say that if we don't sign the new terms and conditions on offer by the 31st of March, that we'll be out of a job. So that's why we're going on strike.
Thanks, Paul. That's really clear to everyone. So who is on strike, Vanessa, just for clarity? Because obviously British Gas is an enormous company, and Centrica and others that are connected to it, but who is actually on strike? I think that's really important.
So the majority of people on strike are field-based engineers at the moment. There are a few of the staff collective on strike as well, but it's mainly the field-based engineers. So that will be service and repair, installations, smart, electrical. So yeah, and it's thousands of people at the moment that are out on strike.
yeah, it's really skilled, really vital people that our society has massively relied on, especially during this period. So I think you have an incredible amount of support. I guess speaking about your own like kind of local situation, so how have members gone about organising this strike? What's that look like? The kind of activities that you've been involved in? Either of you first. It's entirely up to you.
So we've done a number of things. I know that Vanessa herself has helped out with food banks, and we've done charity work. We've also done work at schools that was, helping out there. We've helped with the COVID vaccinations, but we've also had a number of pickets around our local area. We've done pickets in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, West Bromwich, all across the region. We've done pickets at local landmarks, and we've done pickets at landmarks all over the country as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean,
our main point
tried.
was,
Go on, Vanessa.
sorry, our main point was that even though we're out on strike, we wanted to put something back into the community. So at the start of the pandemic, British Gas had us travelling around delivering to food banks with the Trussell Trust. And, it was all in the name of British Gas. So we kind of wanted to go out there and go, do you know what? Yeah, we're not in work, we're striking, but we want to put something back into the community and help out where we can. So whether that be food banks, we've helped out at a local school doing their garden area, and so many other things up and down the country.
It's fantastic, and that's the huge tradition, isn't it, of our movement is solidarity and solidarity with our communities. This strike action is against an employer that is acting appallingly. It's not against the communities that you support and that you service so well and always have done. So I think that's fantastic to hear about, and we hear more and more about that. Last week, we had the discussion about the Barnoldswick strike, where there was an enormous amount of community work done by those on strike. So it's fantastic to hear that. Again, I guess maybe to you, Paul, like what has the support from the movement been like, from the trade union movement and the labour movement?
Yeah, it's been very good. We've had a lot of support from Labour MPs up and down the country. They've really got behind us. The GMB's been fantastic as well. They've really helped us to mobilise and supported us no end. So I mean, we've had Hazel Nolan, who's been heading the campaign, and she's been an absolute breath of fresh air and helped our campaign no end.
Fantastic. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Vanessa, but I caught quite a fair amount of your strike rally, where you seem to be attracting, from Judge Rinder to Gemma Collins, your strike seems to have got some very glamorous supporters. So is there anything else you want to add, Vanessa, to the support that you've received as GMB on strike?
Yeah, we've had absolutely immense support, whether that be from members of the public on Twitter and other social media platforms, from people like Judge Rinder, Gemma Collins, Mark Wright. It's been amazing, the amount of support that we've had.
But on the negative side to that, for possibly political reasons, we haven't had such good coverage from the mainstream media, who seem to have really shut the door in our faces. We are starting to break through a little bit with the mainstream media, but it's been very, very difficult with them, and I suppose they have their political reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely. The established press isn't necessarily always on the side of working people. It's on the side of the people that own those papers and those media outlets. But certainly at Strike Map, we've been hosting an article from a striker in Cheshire, and we've been proud to host that article and shared it as much as possible about why he's on strike. So if you go to our strike story section, you'll be able to see that. And we're not the mainstream media. We're proud to host workers writing from such fantastic strikers as yourself. I guess then one of my other questions is, what can we all do to show and share solidarity with all of you on strike? You've had a period of strike action now, and it's been a long period relatively. So what can we do to keep supporting you and to show that solidarity?
So there's a few things that you can do, really. I mean, we've got a hashtag called Stop the British Gas Fire, which has been, a real success, and it's enabled us to show the full story on there. So if people can just get on Stop the British Gas Fire and help us with the social media campaign. Another one is if you could write to your local MPs just to say that you are disgusted with British Gas for the way that they're treating key workers and people who've kept the country going throughout the pandemic. And then if you could write to the company as well, our CEO, Chris O'Shea, who doesn't seem to be listening and doesn't seem to want to drop fire and rehire.
Yeah, another
Thanks
thing
very
that
much, Paul.
another thing that we are asking people for, if they can, obviously, would be to donate to our crowdfunder. So that's to help support the people that are on strike, so that, you know, we're not starved back into work. And that's available on the GMB website and through crowdfunder.
Yes, because this is our 13th day of strike action today. And obviously that's going to be all weekend as well. So I think the company are trying the tactic now to try and starve us back to work. They sent out an email last night highlighting the money that people will be losing from their February pay, which is in 15th of February, and they've brought that forward to increase the stress and anxiety on the engineers. So a lot of people now are getting very stressed and anxious with the company. They also changed because we get pay deducted up till the 31st of the month for the pay down the 15th, and they've extended that to the 8th to include more strike days. So we'll get more of a deduction from that pay, which is just a disgusting tactic to do, but it's just to create the stress levels and to try and split us.
Absolutely, and we've been sharing, or we'll continue to share, that crowdfunder and all the other actions that you've talked about, because you have our 100% support. I mean, I guess if there's anything else that you want to add, I mean, what's interesting about it is this week the bosses of British Gas went to the select committee, weren't they? And they were grilled by MPs about this work. And you're not the only set of workers facing fire and rehire at the moment across the country. There are several groups of workers either taking strike action or about to take strike action. Is there anything you want to say to those workers that are facing a similar situation to you? And also anything you want to say about if you saw any of that select committee and how the British Gas bosses behaved? That would be fantastic to hear from you both.
So starting off with the select committee, I mean, I think anybody watching could just see the kind of character that our CEO is. He tried to show the good side of himself within that select committee. And that says it already, that he tried to show the good side of him, because for the last 6 months, we've seen all sides of him, and they have constantly sent videos down and emails down to the engineers that have been bullying, harassment, felt like intimidation, non-stop. And a lot of this stuff on the select committee, he contradicted himself from past stuff that he said to us. And I found it very alarming, some of the things that came out of that select committee, the stuff on furlough, the stuff on the fact that the way that they've used fire and rehire, you know, the stuff on the FCA investigation that is apparently underway. I just found so much of it just so alarming, that this man thinks that he can get away with doing what he's been doing, and I find it disgusting, to be honest.
Vanessa, is there anything you want to add?
In regards to the select committee, I was just like really grateful that the people who were sat on the committee could kind of see through him, and they were willing to interrupt him when he was going off on a tangent, and to bring him back on track, and to ask the important questions of him to find out why he's doing this, and, you know, and let him know the impacts to our members of staff, our members, their mental health, because we've got so many people suffering with immense anxiety and people not sleeping. The pressure has been absolutely unreal from this company, and yeah, it's good to kind of get a bit of the truth out there.
Nice.
That's where our frustration's been, because you know, brilliant things such as yourself that have given us a voice, but I do think that there's been so many cover-ups, and the way that they've pushed this into the pandemic on purpose to hide it. I mean, we were key workers throughout the pandemic, and we felt a sense of pride, really, that we were keeping, you know, part of the people who were keeping the country going during the pandemic. And then to sort of, at that time, they were creating, you know, behind our back, they were hatching a plan to massively take away from our terms and conditions. And then they seem to have pushed this into the pandemic and used the pandemic to hide this scheme, when in fact, during that pandemic, they were still making huge profits. And all our engineers worked completely through the pandemic and worked in COVID positive properties. You know, as Vanessa said, we delivered to the food banks in their name. So it just feels like such a slap in the face to then get to the end of this and we've got terms and conditions that are going to take away our family time. I mean, if the pandemic's taught us anything, it's how important our families are. Absolutely. And these terms and conditions just go right against that now. I mean, we can be forced to work an extra 8 hours per week. And it isn't about the money. I mean, we don't get paid for those extra hours, but it isn't about the money. It's about the fact that I'll lose the time with my 2 daughters as they grow up. And I just can't accept that contract. So I don't want to be bullied into signing that contract before the 31st of March. So we have to stand in solidarity and fight it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. I mean, I guess to you, Vanessa, around what's left in terms of how many strike days are left that you've announced, and what do you think the future looks like? Because the support from what I'm seeing on picket lines, from the public and from everyone is rock solid. I've never seen so much of the public, as I said before, and workers keeping so strong on those picket lines. So what strike days have you got left that are announced, if you could let us know? And then what you think the future looks like? Will there be more days, do you think?
So throughout February, we will be striking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and that's throughout the whole of February. If the threat of fire and rehire and they're not getting back around the negotiating table, if that continues, we will continue to strike with more dates released as and when. Nobody's taking this line down, and we will continue on the picket lines, standing where we can with our banners and getting all the public support that we can.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. You have, like I said, 100% support from Strike Map UK. It's a pleasure to have you both on. Thank you very much for giving up some of your time. Full solidarity to you. If you haven't already, make sure your picket lines are on our map. We've got a few of the British Gas pickets, but make sure you add them to us so we can show you solidarity. Thank you very much for giving up your time, and victory to the GMB strikers at British Gas. Thank you very much to both of you. So the final part of the show, we'd normally talk about the victories that workers have had, and we were due to be joined by Dan Kane, who's the president of Teamsters Local 202, about the fantastic Hunts Point strike victory in New York. But sadly, Dan had to give apologies for the meeting, but hopefully will be sitting down to speak with us in the near future. So we hope to be able to catch up with Dan then. I want to finish the show by thanking Veronica, Miranda, Vanessa and Paul for all joining us for what I think has been a fantastically interesting night of discussion. A big thank you also to my good friend and the tech whiz in the trade union movement, Mike Jocelyn, for all of his help behind the scenes. This has been Comrades, a broadcast of Strike Map UK. I've been Henry Fowler. Please follow Strike Map UK on Twitter, on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and become the signed supporter of Strike Map UK today. If you know about a strike, if you know about a picket, put it on our map. Solidarity, comrades. Stay safe.